Hi, everyone. My name is Les Velez, and welcome to the Opus interview series. Opus, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded in 1994. Our mission, simply put, is to help people having paranormal experiences. For more information on what we do, go to our website at opusnetwork.org. Today, I am absolutely thrilled and so happy to have with me a longtime friend, um, Christopher O'Brien. Christopher is an investigative journalist, covered hundreds of unexplained events reported in the San Luis Valley of Colorado, New Mexico. Uh, Working with law enforcement, ex-military members, ranchers, and an extensive network of skywatchers, he documented some of the most intense waves of unexplained activity seen in the single region of North America. Is 10 plus years investigation of UFOs, mutilations, Indian legends, crypto creatures, occult and secret military activity, and the folklore of the region are found in the 3 books of his Mysterious Valley trilogy. He has produced one of the largest databases of Fortean gathered from a single geographic region. And I think one of the things in one of your bios, I read that Lawrence Rockefeller helped you fund your investigations, which
Yeah, for 2 years. Yeah.
that is amazing. His book, his 209 book, 2009 book, Stalking the Tricksters, has been called an ingenious attempt to provide a unified theory that lies together and explains divergent multicultural phenomenal events, and also provide a sobering early warning of the peril of that is inherent in artificial intelligence, which is a real hot topic these days for sure.
Yeah.
His latest book, Stalking the Herd, at 600 pages, is the most comprehensive book ever written on the subject of cattle mutilations. And it's being hailed as the Bible, examining the complicated, misunderstood mystery, which I definitely want to get into with you today. Um, Chris has appeared on over, many TV shows, segments, documentaries, and hundreds of radio programs around the world, including Tucker Carlson Today and Tucker Carlson Originals, Ancient Aliens, Coast to Coast, Expedition X, Strange Evidence, Inside Edition, Extra, Sightings, Mysteries of the National Parks, Unexplained Files, Weird or What, Best Available Evidence, Encounters, UFO File. Oh my God, it just goes on and on. His investigations have been
You,
featured.
you, you got my long bio, my
Yeah, absolutely.
extensive one.
I wanted to, this is great stuff. It's amazing. I didn't realize that you were so involved with so many facets. I mean, you have one hell of a background here, amigo. Anyway, he's been featured on History, Learning, Travel, National Geo, Discovery Channels, the BBC, Nippon TV, AP, UPI. His investigation and research is, as I mentioned earlier, was funded by Lawrence Rockefeller. Since 1993, Chris has worked with dozens of production companies to produce show segments covering the investigations and research. In 1996, he directed 2 segments in a TV show, Strange Universe, and a co-produced film with Ron James, It Could Happen Tomorrow, won 2012 EBs for Best Feature and the People's Choice Awards. His latest James co-production, Accidental Truth 2023, has already won 7 film festival awards. He is also co-produced and creative consultant with James Fox, recent award-winning film The Phenomena 2021, and the Moment of Contact. Wow.
I thought
That's
I sent you
amazing.
my bio. No, I did
Well, I tell you, so here's this guy, Chris O'Brien. He's born, and shortly after that, things started to happen for you. Back us up in how you got into all of this, Chris.
Well, I got a really quick early sort of wake up call, if you will. I woke up when I was six years old in Bellevue, Washington. I woke up one night in the spring 1966 and was just blown away. I had 4 non-human entities staring at me from the foot of my bed, and they ended up. I wasn't was fully conscious. I was not paralyzed, as many abductees report. It was a fully conscious waking experience. They ended up following me around my neighborhood at 3 in the morning as I was going from house to house. Back, I got to call my parents, and I knew from that night on that we weren't alone. That this was something that they weren't talking about in school and church. My parents, of course, they said I was sleepwalking, that it was a nightmare. But when I tried to go out of the kitchen door to go around the back of the house to my parents' bedroom, they had their own entrance in the back. I'd forgot my dad had put the screen door on, and I opened the door and ran right into the locked screen door,
Oh,
and it knocked me down and back on my keister, and I was awake. I mean, I would
oh
wake
yeah.
anybody up. So the basic upshot of the whole thing is that it changed my life. It was probably the single most important experience in my life, besides being born, I guess. I never not that are somehow interacting with our reality. I never saw a ship. I don't have any recollection of being abducted. I've chosen not to have any sort of hypnotic recall session. I was hypnotized once when I was 13 for motivational purposes by Dr. Ivar Berkland, who was the first licensed hypnotherapist in the United States. And he did regress me back. I think my mother, my parents, the O'Briens, adopted me when I was 5. And I think she was maybe trying to get some information about my first 5 years.
Hmm.
I was told something happened. She was very upset at the end of my session. That was supposedly the first of a series of sessions I was supposed to have, but I never went back. And said, she had told me that they were going to tape it prior to going in. She said they're going to be taping it, and we'll listen to it afterwards. And then she wouldn't have anything to do with the concept of sharing what my abductive experiences were, if that's what came out. I was not allowed to hear any tape or anything, and I could tell something upset her
Hmm.
when she talked to the doctor. But you ask a simple question that's a rather complicated answer, I understand. But ever since then, I've been devouring every book and that I could get my hands on all through growing up, and I read Keel and Adamski and Keogh and Bolle,
Hmm.
John Fuller, Frank
Sure.
Edwards. I just sucked all those books down when I was a kid. I learned to read at a very young age, so I was quite precocious, and
So was there ever a period of time after this experience, and then okay, you read a bunch of books, and then you became an adolescent, okay, and did this phenomena or this interest in the phenomena wane in any way, or did it continue to be as
no,
strong?
no. It continues to this day to be one of the motivating factors that I have in my life in terms of my intellectual curiosity.
Hmm.
It's ebbed and flowed a little bit. When I lived in Manhattan, there weren't many situations that would arise that I could talk to people about these things. You're not going to make very much headway in Manhattan even today at cocktail parties talking about dead, mutilated cattle or abduction
Yeah,
experiences.
not a real hot topic,
No,
huh?
no, I learned pretty quick to not to share this information
Hmm.
with anybody but close friends and my immediate family. I did. I did up to study the Hudson Valley
Hmm.
triangles in the sighting wave that was happening up and down the Hudson there in the
That
mid to
was.
late 80s. I went out sky watching a number of times with friends. I knew several people that had seen these things, and that was kind of exciting when I was in college. Um, I was still reading lots of books and
Hmm.
expanding my knowledge base. I've got quite an extensive library. I've managed to hang on to most of these books over the years.
That's
I've got
fantastic.
several thousand books
That
in
Hud-
my
that
library.
Hudson that Hudson Valley situation. I was living in Connecticut at the time,
Yeah,
and so one of the guys in my office, uh, this object flew over their apartment house,
yeah, yeah.
and a whole bunch of people saw it, and he was telling us stories about it that were incredible. So you got to talk to some people that have seen those kind of things. Are just they weren't
Yeah, it was
a bunch of
fascinating.
guys in
I was really hoping to get a.
lights.
I was hoping to get a chance to see it. These
Yeah.
things. I did. I did have a friend who was on a date, and there were four of them, two couples in a car, and they were on the Taconic State Parkway, and this thing flew over, and it literally everybody on the parkway stopped and got out of their cars and watched this thing, and it flew really low, and it was impressive enough for it to make the papers, and this kind of thing was really exciting to me. But like I said, when I moved down to Manhattan, you can't even see the sky. So,
No, it's
and if
too,
your eyes
yeah.
go above eye level, then you're a tourist and you're prey to, back then, it was dangerous to look up.
Yeah.
It's not quite that way now, but
Yeah.
when I moved out west, I moved to Santa Fe, and I was really hoping, you know, um, stay, but then I quickly realized that it really wasn't a place for me.
Hmm.
It's very, very stratified, two-class system, and when there were jobs, there was no housing. When there's housing, there's no jobs. It just didn't. It wasn't a good fit. And I
Mm.
happen to have two friends that lived up in the San Luis Valley, which I had known about since I was 10, and seeing the Inquirer article about Snippy the horse when I was 10 years old. And my first real exposure to the valley was through that article, and to the unexplained animal death mystery. That's where I got my first real wake up call about that. And my friends up in the valley, this is 1989 now, to jump forward a few years. We, my girlfriend and I, were invited to stay up at their place and see if we'd like to live up there. And they had an extra couple of bedrooms. So I had a place to put my office and my audio recording studio. And I received, moved to one of the poorest counties in the country, and managed to survive there. Really bad, winters, 30 below, 40 below. I saw,
Mm.
and I was cutting wood, working construction, playing in a country sort of rock band,
Uh-huh.
make ends meet, and then by '92, we started having all kinds of sighting events that I was hearing about, and I started poking into it a little bit, and in '93, I went full time, looking into dozens and dozens and dozens of reports of unusual objects, of strange,
Oh,
crypto creatures.
this is the thing that you mentioned Snippy, or Lady, was the real horse's name. It wasn't a cattle mutilation, it was a horse mutilation.
Yeah,
And that really got the ball rolling, I guess, as far as people understanding that something weird was really going on. Um, and you know, that's the thing that you know. I remember going to a MUFON symposium in Albuquerque, and Linda Howe was there, and so was Altschuler. Altschuler, yeah,
yeah,
Altschuler,
John
the,
Altshuler.
the vet, I guess.
No, he
And
was a hematologist. He
oh,
wasn't a vet.
hematologist. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, okay, thank you. And uh, that was the first time I really heard that story. Okay, so this is like
yeah,
the '90s, early '90s,
yeah,
when that all went down, and that whole process that these creatures have poor creatures have had to endure and go through. My God, it's just unbelievable. The
yeah,
surgical capabilities that something has. So
yeah. Yeah, it's a
that's
pretty complicated mystery, that's for sure.
yeah, and
One
that yeah.
answer,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
make it sound that slam dunk that it's aliens, and in my opinion, and it's an informed opinion, I
Mhm.
think that aliens is probably the least likely explanation that we have to explain these thousands and thousands of cases that have happened, most of which are misidentified scavenger action. I
Mhm.
must kind of give that caveat. A vast majority of cases are reported as mutilations by people that don't know what they're looking at, and unfortunately, I've had the experience and some unofficial training by veterinary pathologists and biochemists and other professionals on how to properly investigate a case and how to ascertain if a case really deserves to be investigated or if it's just
Mhm.
natural attrition and in scavenger action. That I'd say about 140 of them were equivocal. That probably were scavenger action, although some
Mm.
may have been unusual. Uh, it's really difficult to determine. Once an animal has been dead over a week, then it gets
Mhm.
much more difficult to determine. But out of those 200 cases, about 10% of them, 20%, 20% were done with some sort of intelligence with tools. And then out of those 40 cases or so, let's say 8 or 9 of them were done in a way that you probably couldn't explain with modern forensic diagnostic attempts to
Mhm.
explain. So, when you winnow them down, all it takes is one for it to be a
Mm.
mystery, correct? Just like a UFO
Mhm.
sighting.
Right.
It takes one UFO sighting for there to be something to investigate. Um, the mystery is not as prevalent as some people make it out. In my book, I go to great lengths to show how the process of dissemination tends to pull false positives out, and which are then grabbed onto by people that want to make this into
Mhm.
something that deserves
Right.
attention. And some people have their careers that are based around this type of information, and I I have no drum to bang. I'm not. I don't have any pet theories that I have that I want to try to
Mhm.
prove. I'm not looking around and going through the whole confirmation bias and looking for cases that confirm my already foregone conclusions or anything like that. And I just wish that more people, and there's not many of us that I mean these. I just wish more of us were intellectually honest and looked at all the data instead of a select 10 or 20% of the data that supports their conclusions. Because for every conclusion you come up with, there's at least 80 or
Mhm.
90% of the data that's going to refute it.
Did
So,
you ever cogitate about the fact that why are these things happening and what's the purpose of
certainly, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, they tend to happen downwind and downstream of where we utilize uranium. That's one thing that's became glaringly clear by the late 70s. David Perkins
Mhm.
figured that out, and I kind of predicted the current wave that we're seeing in Oregon. They got hit by the massive cloud that came over from Fukushima,
Fukushima? Okay.
and I told David, well, if your radiation theory is correct, we're going to start seeing cases in Northern California and Oregon, and which hardly ever has. I mean, from the Rocky Mountains east all through the Midwest, there have been thousands of cases. There's only
Mhm.
been dozens on the west of the Rockies.
Hmm.
So I said we should start seeing cases, and sure enough, we've had over 200 since Fukushima. So there may be something to that. There may be some sort of environmental monitoring going on by a human group,
Mhm.
and there may also be a real fear in the beef industry about the outbreak of mad cow disease in the food chain. The
Mm.
beef industry is the largest income producer in agriculture, and it stands to reason that there's some trepidation there and some fear that may be lodged in the upper echelons of the beef industry, and they may be working in a covert manner, trying to establish whether mad cow is breaking out in the beef herds of the world.
Mm.
So and there's also the societal there. So there's a program of keeping the ranching community in its place. The ranching community tends to be well armed, more prone to organized militia activity and shall we say extremist politics. And it's a good way to keep people in their place by terrorizing them, by targeting their livelihoods. And I have a case where a rich rancher was trying to buy out local ranchers that surrounded his huge spread, and these fourth and fifth generation ranchers and farmers didn't want to sell out, so he started having their cattle mutilated. And I have three county sheriffs that have gone on record on video saying that this rancher was using mutilations as a terror tactic to try to drive ranchers out of business, or scare them into selling their property. So this is a really complicated scenario that you can't just sum it up as aliens looking for genetic material in a slaughterhouse and go in and get thousands of gallons of genetic material for whatever reasons that they would want it. And I've never quite figured out what an alien's potential agenda could be with cattle butts and genitalia and tongues. They must have a strange culinary
Yeah.
likes
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
do that.
we of course eat the tongue too.
Not much. You won't see beef tongues around that much anymore.
Yeah,
No, it's not something you see very
Mhm.
often now.
no, but yeah, we've certainly been there with
Yeah.
that. So yeah, a lot of these cases, like I don't know, I'm sure you're familiar with Skinwalker and
I was the first investigator up there from outside the region.
and the Sherman family and the things that happened to them, and here's this calf that the guy looks at, turns around and turns back around, and all of a sudden this thing is butchered.
That's one for the record books. That one. That's probably one of the quickest turnarounds from time of seeing it alive and having it witnessed being dead. I'm not saying that there's not something high strange and supernatural, possibly paranormal,
Mhm.
going on. I think that at the very core of the phenomenon, a very small percentage of cases
Mhm.
feature something that's some sort of preternatural predator that's probably lived alongside humans since we've been domesticating animals. And I think it's probably responsible for our practice of animal sacrifice. Every day, millions and millions of animals are ritually sacrificed in the world. And not to mention the unceremonious mutilation of animals, one per second in the beef industry. Every second that goes by, 24 hours a day, there's a head of livestock that's being slain. Your local.
Yeah.
So there is something. There's something high strange at the core of this. I don't think it's aliens. I think it's something that's probably as terrestrial as we are, maybe even more so, and has some pretty slick abilities to slip in and out of our reality.
And that's the word. It's a different reality, and I think that we're not at the top of the food chain, folks.
Nope.
And we are experiencing something that has been with us for since we've been here on this planet, and it's just a part of the universal process in some way, shape, or form. I get involved with these people that claim that they've had contact with non-human intelligences, and what's their agenda, and why are they doing what they're doing, and it's an incredible phenomena that are just constantly being present and with us, and we just don't understand it, and if we ever will, I don't know. But certainly the when in your book, I read something about the fact that, well, Homo sapiens sapiens, which actually translates to man, the wise, the wise. They have to say it twice. But I
Yeah,
think it's more like the stupid, the stupid.
I was gonna say that's. I think it's more of a hopeful sort of
Yeah,
definition of humans.
yeah, yeah. I didn't realize that that what that meant wise, sapient. So that's interesting. Um, but you go into a lot of different areas in your trilogy, and the first book that you came out with. You talked about the planet, and how three things are really probably wrecking it. It's cows, cars, and chainsaws.
Yeah, that's the famous Jeremy
Yeah,
Rifkin
love,
quote.
yeah, and you know, what are your thoughts about what's going on now in the world as far as climate change and things of that nature? Have you really thought much about that, or
Yeah, of course.
yeah?
That's been that's obviously it's a real hot button issue. It's kind of hard to avoid it in the
Hmm.
media. I think that the planet ebbs and flows. It has natural patterns. I think we may be making more out of climate change and our role in it than than maybe is deserved. I think that we are probably impacting the level of ozone depleting gases and greenhouse gases. Obviously, uh, the combination of cars and cows, I
Hmm.
think, are making some problems with the greenhouse scenario. Uh, Cows are the second largest producers of methane on the planet, which is I think methane's 10 times as detrimental and than just regular CO2, carbon dioxide, and carbon monoxide. So there's always that. I mean, what is it? I think 1.2 billion cattle on the planet are producing every couple of minutes. They're producing a sizable amount of methane each head of livestock, and it's getting to the point now where Ireland is considering the banning of all grazing livestock because
Really?
of
Hmm.
their production of methane. And they're New Zealand, and what ranchers are doing now is they're actually collecting the methane from the animals and using it to run their operations. They've
Th-
got devices hooked up to the rear end of the cow with a bag on its back, and they're allowing the animal to fill up the bag with its own flatulence, and then they're taking the flatulence and running their farms with it. I'm not making this up. This is
No,
a real scenario. So and when you look at the cause of cutting down the rainforest, the main reason
oh
why
yeah.
destroying the lungs of the planet is to make room for more cows.
Hmm.
And as more and more countries become affluent, you're going to have more and more people wanting to eat beef because what's one of the sort of benchmarks of affluence is being able to afford to
Steak.
go out and have a steak dinner.
That's right.
And the more countries have, especially and in the Far East, you're going to have more and more demand for beef. And I think that at some point, beef is going to be outlawed as a protein source because of its detrimental impact on the environment. They're the largest sources of the creation of deserts, unnatural sources. They're the largest, one of the largest causes of freshwater pollution. You know, getting into mad cow disease and anthrax and some of the terrible diseases that rinderpest, one that we were able to finally do away with and eradicate on the planet. God forbid rinderpest should come back. There's a lot of things
Yeah.
about cattle that people, just the average person, doesn't know.
Hmm.
They don't want to know that up to 1,000 animals could be in a single hamburger from a fast food place. They don't want to know that the nerve tissue may contain misfolded proteins that can have them dead within 8 months to a year. You know, uh, mad cow disease or Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is a scourge, and it's a
Hmm.
lot more prevalent than people realize. I did my first Stalking the Herd talk I did in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I had an audience of about 150 people. Afterwards, 6 people came up to me and talked about someone they knew, and generally it was either a girlfriend, boyfriend, or a family member that died of Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease. Now that disease only occurs naturally in 1 in a million people.
Mm.
Out of 150 people, 6 people knew of somebody that died of it.
No.
There's been a 5,000% increase of dementia deaths in this country in the last 25 years. They don't autopsy people that die of dementia. And so we really don't know what the cause of death is
Mm.
or what's caused the dementia. And these misfolded proteins are just chronic disease, which is mad cow in deer and elk, or Creutzfeldt-Jakob's in humans, scrapie in sheep. What these misfolded proteins do is they cause other proteins to misfold. And when they fold, they start creating holes in the nerve tissue and in the brain tissue. And once you've created enough holes, you start to interrupt synaptic function. The brain stops telling the person to breathe, it stops telling the heart to beat, and you end up dying from the side effects of the misfolded proteins interrupting synaptic function. Now, if we're seeing a 5,000% increase in dementia deaths and nobody's being autopsied, we don't know what these people are dying from. There's been one study, to my knowledge, that autopsied everybody that died of dementia symptoms within 100 miles of the University of Pennsylvania, and the kids, doctoral students, did a study, and they had everybody autopsied that died from dementia, 20% of prion disease. Now, this was all hushed up. This news really wasn't allowed to be disseminated fully out into the culture. And even some medical personnel that I've talked to were shocked when they heard about this. So, there's a lot more to this whole cattle mutilation thing. And,
Yeah.
I think the beef industry is involved here. And, I must do the disclaimer here as I love beef. I eat beef.
I was just going to ask you that.
I only eat grass-fed beef that comes from a place where I know, close to my home. So I don't want to wake up and have a $2 billion lawsuit tomorrow morning or morning after we broadcast the show, like Oprah did when she said she'd never eat another hamburger again. I don't go to fast food places and eat an industrialized beef protein.
Right.
I stay away from that like the plague and have for over 20 years, 25 years now. So do a college level, course on this subject. It's very, very involved. There's a lot more to it than aliens coming down and gathering parts for lip and eye stew or udder souffle or tongue tongue pie or something, tongue kidney pie. And it's not a subject that very many people are going to find interesting enough. It's coming a couple days after Halloween. It's really spooky, scary stuff. When you really look at the full extent and the implications of what we're dealing with. So,
well,
gone away. We've had quite a number of cases. It seems to be on an upswing after being gone for a while and doing their thing down in South America, which has been just hammered since 2002. They've been have thousands of cases down there, and we're never going to hear about most of them.
Yeah, it's incredible, and there's so many other things that are around that phenomena, whether it's UFO sightings, whether it's black helicopters, Bigfoot. It's all seems to be wrapped up. They're all associated. Whether you can talk about poltergeist activity, you can talk about portals, you can talk about all these things that are just seemingly so bizarre, so strange, yet they seem to be happening to people. People are seeing these kind of things. They're experiencing these kind of things, and it's something that for me, one of the things that what Opus has been doing when people contact us is, we have an online support group for these people that they can talk about their experiences and talk to one another 24/7. And then we also have a referral network of mental health practitioners and the hypnotherapists that we can refer people to. So there is something going on. John Mack, he was involved with this whole abduction experiencer phenomena and did a tremendous amount of work. Almost got fired over it. And so it really boils down to that there's a stigma attached to a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's happening now, and I don't know how closely you've been following the congressional hearings on this UAP situation, but
I've been following it about as close as you can.
okay, good. And you know, this is like the opening salvo of understanding that we are not alone and that there is something happening. And whether it's extraterrestrial, interdimensional, time travelers, our military, or all the above, which I kind of think it is,
Yeah.
that the next phase is these people that are actually having contact and the stigma that's attached to that phenomena. How involved have you gotten with any experiencers that have, besides yourself, of course?
Well,
But
yeah, I've had a bit of contact with people. Some of the more well-known people in the field. Of course,
Mhm.
many of them I have a friendship with, or relationship with on some level. And I did have a number of people over the years contacted me about their own personal experiences. I tend not to, uh, it's pretty rare that I will dive into a case and become the primary investigator. I
Mhm.
don't feel that I have the skill set and the tools really to, to properly. It's for most of these folks, they just need somebody to talk to,
Right.
and I'm here for that. And but when it comes to hypnotizing people and trying to
Mhm.
regress them and going into a proactive investigative environment, I don't do that.
Right.
I would rather they go see someone that doesn't have any sort of relationships within the field, someone that's agnostic about it. And I don't have people go to names in the field. I think that the investigative waters in this realm have become terribly muddied up by people that have good intentions, but are unwittingly leading people along and possibly coming up with recollected experiences that may not be as accurate as
And there's basically two camps. I mean, there's the camp that feels that all these entities are benevolent, and then there's the other camp that's all malevolent. And
well, there's a
and so
third camp of Stephen Greer that says they're all military.
oh yeah, well yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, but I think that where I was going with this is that we have a lot of issues in this country, as far as prejudices, and you know, if this comes out in a big way that these experiencers are having contact, this could be another group that's going to be
Yeah,
terrorized
yeah,
by the general populace, and
yeah.
and so
There's a real danger there. I think that it's surprising me how quickly this whole disclosure. I mean, it was just last year that people were saying, "Well, the government's willing to, talk about rebrand the whole thing so that they don't have to talk about the history
mhm.
of 75 years of lying to the public. So let's call it something else so that we can kind of go sideways with it a little bit and pretend like it's brand new." But they'll never talk about bodies, crash material,
Mhm.
or the abduction phenomenon. And here we are, less than a year later, and we've already broken through, and we're talking about crash debris and
Yep.
recoveries and back
Hmm.
engineering technology, and Gary Nolan and his work
Hmm.
with people that have had medical complications when coming in close contact with some of these craft, and the energies that are inherent
Hmm.
with these craft. Gary's work, I think, is beyond reproach, and I really have a sense that it's back to the subject is really finding ways for it to be fully addressed. And I think that this we're going at a breakneck pace compared to the last 70 years. And I think the congressional, the folks in the committees and the subcommittees that are having to deal with this, they're really having to become up to speed really quickly. And quite frankly, I think a lot of them are freaking out. I know that any of the especially in the Air Force, any of the military folks and intelligence community folks that are at all religious are just they're having conniptions over this. They think it's demonic. They don't want to deal with it because it's of the devil. It goes against all their beliefs, and it's threatening to topple the
Yeah, society.
well,
Well, it's
the elements
interesting.
of society belief.
Yeah, well, the if you can believe in God, why can't you believe that there's other types of entities out there? It's like
Well,
it's
Danny
somewhat.
Sheehan, I think he makes a great point. He said, "Look, the Vatican came out in the 1200s with the Many Worlds Edict, saying that we're not the only thing out there, and that we're
Yeah,
all children of God." And that was in the 1200s. So, I
yeah.
mean, that was pre-Renaissance even. So,
Mm,
I think that the various uh, religious structures know that there's something going on. I mean, hell, there's a whole court in the Arabic world for taking the jinn to court,
mhm.
and having the jinn represented by legal experts. And
Console.
I mean, if the average person in this country knew that I mean, it's crazy enough for water to have its own court system in the Southwest. In Saudi Arabia, you can on go and shoo the jinn away. Les, did you even know that?
Mm, yeah,
You knew that there's a court of law for jinn in Arabic countries.
yeah. I mean, the factors that people live under and their systems that they have can be so remarkably different and in a way very uh, open-minded, if you will, as far as that whole
Yeah.
subject.
Well,
And
I think it's going to get. I never thought I'd see this happen in my lifetime. Every day is a new wonderful experience to see how quickly all these houses of cards are being toppled. And I think we're in the age of tricksterism, and I think you combine the new openness with artificial intelligence and the game technology, and all bets are off. I mean, we could see some pretty mighty towers of control and power become toppled like houses of cards. And uh, I mean, that's on one hand, that's a very good thing. It opens up room for creative impetus, and it shuts down some of the control mechanisms that have held us down for so many years and decades. That it's got to be a positive thing. But boy, it's going to be a little painful for a lot of folks when their reality views are
yeah,
totally
I
crashed in front
we're,
of
we're
their eyes.
we're constantly fighting against the establishment, the powers that be, and that's where the issues are. I mean, why do we have to have wars? I mean, what's the purpose of these wars?
Ritual blood sacrifice.
Yeah, there you go. It's big time blood sacrifice, and
Yeah, it's old white men that know each other getting a bunch of young white men that don't know each other to kill each other.
hmm Yeah, and it's tragic. I mean, can you imagine all this money we could be putting to better use,
Yeah,
trying to
my
cure
point
other.
exactly.
Oh, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. You know, what we need to do is we need to replace all these white guys with white women, or not white women, but women, just
Yeah, just
general,
women.
just women, um, because I think they have a spirituality that men in general don't have. That, you know, that kind of a basis. I mean, you look through history, and the healers that have been predominantly women,
Yeah.
and things of that nature. I think it
Well,
would be great.
indigenous cultures, I think in general, I mean, their whole, their whole sort of uh, thing, without looking at its impact 7 generations from now. And if you're looking 140 years down the road, what your decisions today, what impact it's going to have, if you're looking from that place, you're going to be a lot more careful about indiscriminate spreading of you know nuclear energy when we don't know how to properly dispose of the waste. The whole idea of the internal combustion engine,
Hmm.
and the squandering of resources and the cutting down of the rainforest and all these things that we're doing to the planet. There's one school of thought which was espoused by my erstwhile and the recently departed mentor David Perkins, and he was coming to he came in the end of his life. He came to the realization that what's going on here is probably some sort of evolutionary, that the phenomena that we're seeing, whether they're high tech saucers or cattle mutilations, are actually designed by ourselves as the collective or by the planet itself, Gaia,
Hmm.
as a superorganism. And these things are being perpetrated uh, as a conditioning routine uh, to trick us to get off planet so that we go out and seed our DNA out into the cosmos before we get hit by an asteroid, before we have another younger dryas period, for instance, or the sun goes supernova, or we get hit
Hmm.
by radiation from some nearby star exploding, and get out and seed the cosmos, and that we're possibly tricking ourselves to do this by collectively manifesting, episodes of UFO sightings and the cultural stigmata of cattle mutilations, and I think really to be for that very creative line of thinking, and I really I can understand why he would come to that conclusion. I don't completely agree with it, but for the most part, I think it makes a hell of a lot more sense than little grays from Zeta Reticuli coming to gather genetic material to soak into their skin,
Hmm.
whatever the cockamamie alien theories are. And the whole abduction phenomenon could somehow be tied into that as well. I think you look at all the contactees and all these abductees and the kids at Rua and Zimbabwe, being told
Yeah,
we're becoming too technologicalized, and we need to
be more
start,
spiritual. Hmm.
yeah, and start treating the planet with more
Hmm.
respect. And these are all universal truths that are being commonly reported, and I don't think it's by accident. I think there's a lot more uh, these subjects that really has not been adequately addressed by the research community. Number one, and number two, the media, and how it proselytizes these cultural memes, erroneous cultural memes, out into the culture. And one of my real you know sort of tasks that I've and goals that I have is to try to educate people to become a little bit more creative in their thinking and not allow their computers and their TVs and their movie screens and stuff to be the educating factor in their life. It's creating their belief system for them. I think we need a little bit more
Critical thinking, critical thinking.
critical
Yes.
thinking, exactly. And
Yep.
it's unfortunate, but it's it's an uphill battle with the culture is not our friend. Let's put it that. I think Dennis, or it was Ken, brother name, uh, Terrence McKenna. That
Oh yeah.
he said, and Brian Eno too also said the culture is not our friend, and that if culture is everything you don't have to do, or you don't have to do or don't have to believe in, and that's always been something that's been a guiding principle for me. I'm just an au contrarian. I don't buy into a lot of the stuff that's being touted as fact and fashionable and all that. I tend to be people say keep your eyes to the sky. I immediately put my ear to the ground. Just put it that way. If everybody says, "Oh well, the
Uh,
UFOs always show up in the West," I'm looking in the East. That's just just
that
the way
way. That's good. That's good. Yeah, you mentioned Gary Nolan's name earlier, and he, I had a cohort of experiencers, I guess, that they examined, did MRIs on them, and they found that the area of their brain, the connections between the caudate and the putamen area, there was a lot more connections
yeah,
with these people that also had psychic abilities, telepathic capabilities,
right,
and that these people were hooking up with other people that had the same type of a condition, and it ran in families. And so it's like an evolutionary process that eventually people that don't have that capability won't be around. It's just being they're going
yeah,
to be culled out.
yeah.
Um,
Well, it's the gene pool kind of works in mysterious ways.
and he basically purported that the geologists say that the Earth is like 4.5 billion years old, and that our genome mutates every 600,000 years. And he said, depending, if you look at that kind of a scale and where we are as humans right now, to be where we are, the Earth would have to be 9 billion years old, unless
Yeah,
somebody
yeah,
manipulated something way back
yeah,
when.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And there's always
I mean,
that
these are just,
possibility. Definitely.
it's just absolutely fascinating stuff. And then, you mentioned Gaia, and I've always had this, I don't know if you want to call it of a thought or a nightmare, more like uh, that one morning you would wake up and that would be your last breath because we finally cut down enough trees to facilitate a lack of oxygen that we would need to survive. And so Gaia will have taken care of the whole situation in one fell swoop,
Yeah,
and everybody will be gone.
yeah. It's take everybody says, "Well, we're going to destroy the planet." We're not going to destroy the planet. We're just going to make it uncomfortable for a couple of decades, and then it'll bounce back in no time if we're not around.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even during COVID, things got better.
Yeah,
I mean, air quality was better. A
yeah,
whole bunch of
yeah,
things were
yeah,
better.
yeah.
We were all
It's
trapped in our
amazing,
houses.
right?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I mean, it's one of those things that I think that we're living in a tricksterous age, and I my book's talking to tricksters. I pointed out in the last chapter uh, that things are looking like we're going to see a complete upheaval and a toppling of control systems and the static structures and that have been holding certain types of human development down and spiritual development down. Uh, and the whole conversation that's going on right now, I think, is something to really pay attention to in terms of artificial intelligence and the whole idea that Ray Kurzweil, of course, has been talking about for 20 years about headed towards a singularity where we merge with the computers and mechanical mind. This this could be detrimental to human development. Although, any of my naysayers go, well, why don't they just unplug it? And well, that's a good point. But we have such a integrated grid now of power and information that it would be difficult to shut everything down. Let's put it that way. And
Well,
I do think that we're headed towards some real problematic times.
well, you and I have been in are old enough that, we used to communicate by writing letters.
Oh yeah, wasn't that fun?
And then the telex machine came along, and then the Twix machine came along, and then the fax machine came along, and now we have mobile phones. And my God, the capabilities mobile phones are just unbelievable. It's
Yeah.
just absolutely
There's
fantastic.
more computing power in your mobile phone than the entire mission control
Uh,
during at the
the
Johnson
Apollo
Space Flight
program.
Center. Yeah,
It's just incredible,
yeah.
incredible. Chris, because you've got such an incredible background, is there something right now that you feel that you'd like to talk about? I mean, that like to put it out there, like some kind of feeling that you have, what's going on in the world, and
Well, that's kind of what I've been doing. I
well,
really
yeah.
think that we're on some disturbingly intense times. I think that we're teetering on a potential World War III with the whole political situation that's going on in the Middle East right now, with
Yeah.
spending billions and billions of dollars in the Ukraine, and our China's going to make a move at some point when we're stretched too thin, and that's gonna create an emboldened North Korea. And I've studied end time prophecy and the traditions of the end of this current incarnation of humans. I've studied it for many decades, and I've befriended native elders who have studied it, and I've cross-referenced their traditional knowledge with what I see going on in the world. And when Grandfather Martin, the Hopi Fire Clan prophecy tablet holder, told me, when he asked if he could spend a couple of weeks at my house
Mhm.
after a particularly fun Thanksgiving that he was invited to, and he says, "I don't want to leave. Do you mind if I hang around for a while?" I got a chance, this is after knowing him for 10 years, and
Mhm.
getting him to become more and more comfortable and opening up more and more, and finally, I just came right out and said, how's this? You keep saying we're at the end of the fourth world, and if the sun doesn't come up and we have 3 days of darkness, don't close your blinds, lock your doors, lock your windows. Don't let anybody in, no matter who you think they might be. They are not to be allowed in. And at the end of 3 days, then if you're
Mhm.
still around, you can open your door. But and I always was very intrigued by the Fire Clan prophecy of the Hopi. Of course, the Hopi are the primordial sort of aboriginals of North America, and the oldest culture in North America. I'll put it that way. And so as he was hanging out, watching football with me, uh, unto itself, it was during the playoffs, of course, and I told him, "Well, good, sure, Martin, you can hang out if you don't mind me watching my Broncos." So, seeing him jumping up and down, touchdown, touchdown. 85-year-old, in full traditional regalia,
Oh, wow.
start doing a war dance. I asked him, how's it going to end? And he goes, he said, Korea is going to fire, was going to shoot birds of fire
Mhm.
to, and that's going to be the end. And I said, well, this is back in 2005. And they didn't even have a nuclear program back then. And I said, well, that doesn't make sense. I mean, North Korea, they're not
Mhm.
a threat. Are you sure you don't mean China? Oh no. He says
Wow.
that the forces in the east are going to fire birds of fire. They'll
Wow.
and look at what they have now. They not only do they have nuclear weapons, probably, but they they now have submarines, or at least one.
Yeah.
And he said that that will be the end stage of the War of the Gourd of Ashes, which he claimed was fulfilled. The beginning of the War of the Gourd of Ashes was fulfilled when the U.S. went into Kuwait to kick Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait in 1991. He had a press conference in Santa Fe with the governor and the reporters, and he whipped the prophecy tablets out, which he carried in a sash around his waist, and he showed them and he explained that this is the end. This is the beginning of the end. We have one generation, 20 years before the last phase begins.
Wow.
He's not around to confirm this, but I'm telling you right now, he's
Mhm.
very
And this was
the fourth world. So
this was 2005. You said that you had that
it was
meeting with.
92 is when he
Oh,
said that the
oh,
War of the Gourd
92.
of Ashes has
Okay.
begun. 2005 is when he told me that Korea was going to
Oh,
fire,
Korea. Okay. Right.
birds of fire were going to be
Mhm.
fired from the east, and it'll be coming from the west, and then that will be the beginning of the end there, and that will start the chain of events that end the
There's
world.
there's been multiple predictions about the time frame between 2025 and 2027 of major catastrophes.
Yeah.
And so the psychic Baba Yaga was out of Bulgaria. I think she predicted that a large asteroid was going to hit the Earth in 2027, and it was directed here by aliens.
Oh, great.
So
Just what we need.
yeah. So have fun while you can.
Beachfront property, folks.
Oh my God. Well, look, Chris, I tell you, this has been absolutely fascinating. I'm, your book right here, People's Secrets in the Mysterious Valley. It's a trilogy, and you got to get his books. They're absolutely fascinating. The Herd, and what's the other one?
Well, Stalking the Tricksters.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
the first two books of the San Luis Valley trilogy. Yeah.
right. Stalking the Tricksters and Stalking the Herd.
Right.
And so I want to thank you so much, Chris, and I wish you the best. You got any projects you can talk about that you're working on?
Yeah, I'm working with a project called UFODAP, which is the
Right.
just on that. It's taken off like gangbusters. It's triangulated camera arrays and multiple sensor arrays, magnetometers and accelerometers, radio frequency spectrum analyzers, and various other types of scientific measuring equipment that is now being set up around the world on 4 continents, from the Azores to New Zealand, Brazil, Finland. We've got 76 setups in varying degrees of complexity around the world right now, and it's growing weekly. And we're real excited that we're finally getting to a point where we can have a centralized data collection point for the public to capture some of these anomalous aerial events, and share their data, and begin establishing a different, which can then be analyzed by academics and science for the betterment of all of us and our knowledge. And this has been a dream since I was first starting out as an investigator in the early 90s, when it would have cost upwards of $1 million to do what I'm doing now for just mere a few $1,000s. And with the advent of the internet, we're able to tie all these systems together now, and this is really exciting. Nobody's done anything like this before. A bunch of people have said they wanted to do it. Well, Ron Olch, Wayne Hollenbeck, and myself, we did it. We pulled it off, and I'm proud to say that UFODAP is now taken off. And
If people are interested in perhaps participating, with you in this effort, how do they get a hold of you?
It's UFODAP.com.
Okay.
Just on the lead-in page, there's our. We're not making everything cost plus. We're just charging what the manufacturers are charging us.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to pay for the software. Ron
Right.
Olch spent 6 years and wrote 100,000 lines of code. We need to tighten him up a little bit for his time, but
Yeah.
everything is being kept as the price down as much as it totally
Feasible.
possible, so that people can afford to have these systems set up. It's more important to us to have these systems out there than it is to make money trying to get them out there. So
Yeah.
UFODAP.com, and if you want to know more about what I do, we live on a strange planet. It's OurStrangePlanet.com.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
That's clever. Our Strange Planet.
OurStrangePlanet.com. One word, of course.
All right. Well, very good, Chris. I want to thank you again. I really appreciate you taking the time to
Sure.
chat with me. I want to thank our listeners out there. As I mentioned, we're a nonprofit, and so if you go to our website and you have the ability to donate a little something, we would greatly appreciate it so we can keep doing what we do to help these people that are having paranormal experiences. And so you can go to opusnetwork.org. Again, Chris, thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's my pleasure too, Les. Thanks.